Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're jumping straight into a really fascinating chapter, Daniel chapter 8.
Yeah, it's packed with vivid imagery, quite powerful predictions. We're basically going back to the third year of King Belshazzar's reign.
Right, so Daniel's near the Ulai Canal, Susa, Elam, I think.
That's the setting. And he has this, well, extraordinary vision.
Okay, let's dive in. How does this start? The vision, I mean.
It begins with Daniel seeing an animal right there beside the canal.
Okay,
He looks up, and there's a ram.
a ram. But probably not just any ram, knowing Daniel's visions.
Definitely not. This one has two horns, both long.
Okay, two longhorns.
But here's the detail. One horn is longer than the other, and the text specifically says it grew up later.
Longer and grew up later. That feels significant, like maybe a sequence of power.
Exactly. That asymmetry is probably key. It hints at, well, maybe two related powers, but one eventually overshadows the other.
And is the ram just standing there?
Oh no, it's active. Very active. It's charging powerfully west, north, and south.
So expanding its influence in multiple directions.
Aggressively. And the vision stresses its dominance. It says no other animal could stand against it.
Wow. Complete control.
It did whatever it pleased, became great. Just this picture of, an unstoppable force taking over.
You get this image of raw power, unchallenged. But Daniel's visions usually have layers, right? Things shift.
They do. Just as Daniel's probably processing the sheer might of this ram,
Yeah.
boom, something else appears.
Okay, what is it?
Suddenly, a goat comes flying in from the west.
A goat. Does it seem as powerful as the ram?
It's powerful in a different way. Its defining feature isn't just brute strength, it's speed. Unbelievable speed.
Speed. How is it described?
Well, first, it has a single, really prominent horn right between its eyes.
One big horn. Interesting contrast to the rams, too.
Right, but the speed, the text says it was moving so fast it was crossing the whole earth without touching the ground.
Without touching the ground. That's poetic, but also terrifyingly fast. Like it's not bound by normal physics.
It conveys this overwhelming momentum, just unstoppable velocity, and it has a very specific target.
Let me guess. The ram.
Straight for the ram. The one that seemed invincible moments ago.
And is it cautious?
Not at all. It charges the ram in great rage. This is personal, furious.
So a direct, angry confrontation.
Absolutely. The vision shows the goat attacking furiously, and crucially, it shatters both of the ram's horns.
Shatters the horns, the very symbols of its power.
Gone. Instantly disarmed. Then the goat knocks the ram down, tramples it.
So the dominant force is just completely overwhelmed.
Utterly. The text emphasizes the ram was powerless. None could rescue it. Total swift defeat.
Wow. So the ram's reign is over, just like that. And the goat.
Well, after that victory, the goat becomes very great itself. It takes over that position of dominance.
Makes sense. But you mentioned layers and shifts. Does the goat's dominance last?
Here's where it gets really interesting. The goat reaches this peak, this height of its power. And then right at that moment, its large horn, that single prominent horn symbolizing its unified power, it gets broken off.
Broken. Just like that. Not in battle, but it just breaks.
Seems so. At the very height of its strength, it's like this sudden internal fragmentation.
Huh. So what happens then? Is there just no horn?
No, something replaces it. The vision shows 4 prominent horns growing up in its place.
4 horns.
4. And they grow toward the 4 winds of heaven. Spreading out, maybe.
So the single unified power is replaced by a divided power, pointing in all directions.
Seems like it. A division of authority, perhaps. So ram defeated by goat. Goat's single horn breaks, replaced by 4 horns.
Okay, following the sequence, does it end there with the 4 horns?
Not quite. The vision continues. Another horn emerges.
Another horn. From where?
Out of one of those 4 horns. But this one's different at the start.
How so?
It starts small. Almost insignificant, maybe, but it doesn't stay small.
It grows.
It grows immensely in power. Specifically, the text says, to the south, the east, and toward the beautiful land.
The beautiful land usually means Israel, right?
That's the common understanding in these contexts, yes. So its expansion is targeted, including towards this very significant place.
And the scale of its power. Is it just earthly?
This is where it gets really dramatic. It grows so powerful, it reaches the host of the heavens.
The heavens. What does that even mean? It's fighting angels.
It's hard to say exactly, but the imagery is striking. It throws some of this starry host down to the earth and tramples them.
Tramples the stars.
Yeah.
This sounds like more than just political conquest. It sounds defiant against something higher.
Extremely defiant. It even sets itself up to be as great as the prince of the host.
Challenging the ultimate leader, the prince himself. And does this defiance have earthly consequences?
Oh, yes, very specific ones. This horn takes away the daily sacrifice from the prince.
The sacrifice, like the temple rituals.
Exactly. It targets the core worship,
Yeah.
and the place of his sanctuary is brought low, defiled,
Yeah.
diminished.
So it's actively suppressing worship, desecrating the holy place. Why is it allowed to succeed?
The vision gives a reason. Because of rebellion. It seems like this power is given authority over the host of the saints, God's faithful people, and the sacrifice because of widespread wickedness or rebellion.
That's disturbing. So it succeeds because of sin.
That's the implication. It prospers in everything it does, and maybe the most chilling part, truth was thrown to the ground.
Truth itself is a casualty. Wow. So ram, goat, 4 horns, then this small horn growing huge, defying heaven, persecuting the faithful, stopping worship, attacking truth. That's intense.
Incredibly intense for Daniel to witness, and naturally the question arises, how long? How long does this last?
Does Daniel ask? Or
He overhears. He hears one holy one asking another, how long will it take for the vision to be fulfilled?
specifically about this period of desecration?
How long for the daily sacrifice being stopped, the desolating rebellion, the trampling of the sanctuary and the host? It's focused on the duration of this small horn's impact.
And is there an answer?
A very specific one. The other holy one replies, it will take 2,300 evenings and mornings.
2,300 evenings and mornings, like days. Or is it symbolic?
That number, 2,300, is precise. Whether it's literal days or symbolizes a longer period is a major point of interpretation. But the key thing is there's a defined end.
What happens after the 2,300?
The answer connects directly. Then the sanctuary will be reconsecrated, cleansed, restored.
So a period of desecration followed by restoration tied to this specific number. Okay. Daniel sees all this. What's he thinking?
Well, the text says he's watching, trying desperately to understand it all. It's overwhelming.
I bet. Does he get any help?
Yes.
Yeah.
As he's struggling, someone appears who looked like a man.
An angel.
Seems like it, because then a voice calls out from the Ulay Canal, directing Gabriel by name to explain the vision to Daniel.
Gabriel, the messenger angel. So official interpretation is coming.
Exactly. Gabriel approaches, and Daniel is, understandably, terrified, falls flat on his face.
Overwhelmed.
Completely. But Gabriel raises him and gives him the crucial context right away. He says, Son of man, understand that the vision concerns the time of the end.
The time of the end. Not just the immediate future after Babylon.
That's the frame. This isn't just about predicting the next empire or two. It ultimately points much further ahead.
Gabriel elaborates.
He says he'll explain what happens later in the time of wrath because, he repeats, the vision concerns the appointed time of the end.
Okay, so this interpretation is vital, looking towards some future culmination. Let's hear it. What does Gabriel say the ram is?
No ambiguity here. The two-horned ram represents the kings of Media and Persia.
Media and Persia. Fits perfectly historically after Babylon. And the 2 horns, one longer growing later.
Fits how Persia eventually became dominant over Media, right?
Yeah, it does. Okay, so the ram is Media Persia. What about the super fast goat?
Gabriel identifies it as the king of Greece.
Greece, okay. And the single prominent horn.
That's the first king of Greece.
Alexander the Great. I mean, the speed, the single leader conquering the Persian Empire.
Yeah.
It fits incredibly well.
The parallels are striking, aren't they? That crossing the earth without touching the ground really captures Alexander's campaigns.
Definitely. So the goat's horn breaks at its height. What does Gabriel say about that and the 4 horns that replace it?
He says the 4 horns represent 4 kingdoms that will emerge from his nation, from Greece.
The successor kingdoms after Alexander died.
Exactly. And Gabriel makes the same point as the vision. These 4 kingdoms will not have the same power as that first king.
Which is historically true. Alexander's empire fractured. None of his generals, the Daidoji, held it all together with the same authority.
Precisely. The interpretation maps onto history remarkably well up to this point. Media Persia, then Greece under Alexander, then its division.
Okay, so now we get to the small horn that came out of one of the 4. This is the one that grew huge and defied heaven. Who is this?
Gabriel gives a really detailed profile. He calls him a stern-faced king, a master of intrigue.
Stern-faced master of intrigue sounds calculating and ruthless. When does he show up?
In the latter part of their reign, meaning the reign of those 4 Greek kingdoms. And significantly, when rebels have become completely wicked, his rise is linked to a time of deep moral decay.
Okay. And his power?
He becomes very strong. But here's that crucial, slightly mysterious phrase again. but not by his own power.
Not by his own power. What do you think that implies? Some external, maybe dark force backing him?
It strongly suggests that. His power source is beyond normal human means. Supernatural, maybe sinister.
Chilling. And his actions. Gabriel details those.
Oh, yes. Astounding devastation. He succeeds in whatever he does. He destroys powerful people, the mighty men, and the holy people, the faithful.
So he targets both secular power and God's people.
Yes. He makes deceit prosper, champions lies, he's arrogant, considers himself superior. And one detail, he destroys many when they feel secure. Treachery, surprise attacks.
Attacks when defenses are down. Ruthless.
Yeah.
The vision said the horn defied the prince of the host. Does Gabriel confirm that?
Directly. He says this king will take his stand against the prince of princes.
The ultimate rebellion, targeting the highest authority there is.
It's the peak of his arrogance and defiance.
But he can't win, can he? How does it end for him?
Gabriel is clear on this too. Despite all his power, yet he will be destroyed.
Destroyed how? By armies. Uprising.
Not by human power.
Wow. Just like his rise wasn't purely human, his fall won't be either. It implies divine intervention is needed to stop him.
That's the strong implication. His end comes from beyond the human sphere.
Okay. And what about the 2300 evenings and mornings?
Gabriel confirms the vision about that time frame is true, but then he tells Daniel something important. Seal up the vision, for it concerns the distant future.
Seal it up. Keep it safe because it's not for now, it's for way down the road.
Exactly. It reinforces that whole time of the end context. While parts connect to Media Persia and Greece, the core of it, especially the stern-faced king and the 2300 days, points much further ahead. The exact interpretation of that period and king is still debated, of course.
So Daniel gets this intense vision, this detailed, future-oriented explanation. How does he react personally?
It hits him hard, physically. He says he was exhausted and lay ill for several days.
Just drained by the experience.
Totally. And emotionally, he was appalled by the vision. Even with Gabriel's help, he found it beyond understanding.
Even with an angel explaining it was too much, too heavy?
The scope of it, the conflict, the focus on the time of the end, it clearly overwhelmed him. The weight of knowing this future was immense.
But he didn't just, give up, did he?
No. It's quite remarkable. Despite being ill and appalled, the text says he got up and went about the king's business.
Wow. He carried that heavy knowledge and just got back to his duties in the court.
Yeah, he lived with it.
Okay, so let's pull back a bit. What are the big takeaways from this deep dive into Daniel 8?
Well, first, you get this incredibly specific prophetic timeline. It clearly links the empires following Babylon, Media, Persia, the ram, and Greece under its first great king, likely Alexander, the goat, and then the division of Greece, the four horns.
The symbols are given clear historical anchors early on.
Right. But then it uses that anchored history as a launch pad to describe a future figure, the small horn, the stern-faced king.
And this figure is defined by some pretty unique characteristics.
Yeah, immense power, not his own, mastery of intrigue, arrogance, causing devastation, targeting both the mighty and the holy, and especially his direct opposition to the Prince of Princes.
And his hostility towards truth and worship.
Definitely. Plus, the chapter gives that specific time frame, the 2300 evenings and mornings, linked to the desecration he causes and the eventual reconsecration of the sanctuary. It's a numerical anchor in the prophecy.
And overarching all of this is Gabriel's statement that it concerns the time of the end. It was sealed because it was for the distant future.
That context is crucial. It tells us the ultimate fulfillment lies beyond the immediate historical context of Media Persia and Greece.
So we've journeyed through this vision, the ram, the goat, the broken horn, the four horns, the rise of that small defiant horn, the 2300 days, and Gabriel's interpretation.
It's a sequence that, as we saw, left Daniel physically ill and struggling to comprehend, precisely because it was sealed up, pointing to a future far beyond his own time.
Which leads to, I suppose, a final thought, something to really chew on.
Go for it.
This stern-faced king, this powerful, defiant figure. Gabriel says he'll be destroyed, but explicitly not by human power.
Right. That detail really stands out.
So the question it leaves you with is, what does that really mean? What kind of event, what kind of intervention does it take to end a power like that, a power that seems to have supernatural backing and targets the divine itself? What does that tell us about the nature of this appointed time of the end the vision points towards?
That's a profound question stemming directly from the text. What does that non-human destruction look like?
Something to think about. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Daniel 8. We hope it's given you plenty to consider.